The Smith family had just moved into their new house, and they were excited to start their new life there. As they were settling in, they came across a dusty old doll sitting in the attic. The doll was old and creepy looking, with faded eyes and a torn dress. Mrs. Smith suggested throwing it away, but her daughter, Lily, was fascinated by the doll and insisted on keeping it. At first, Lily was thrilled to have the doll in her room. She spent hours playing with it, brushing its hair, and talking to it. But soon, strange things started happening. The family would wake up in the middle of the night to find the doll sitting in different places around the house, even though no one had moved it. They could hear whispering voices coming from the doll, and Lily's room would get colder and colder as the night went on. One night, Lily woke up to find the doll sitting at the foot of her bed. She knew she hadn't put it there, but she didn't think too much of it. However, the next night, when she woke up to the sound of whispering voices, she realized something was seriously wrong. She tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the voices continued to get louder and more insistent. Meanwhile, the parents were starting to notice something was off as well. They could hear Lily talking to the doll in the middle of the night, even though she insisted she wasn't. They started to feel a sense of unease around the doll, and Mrs. Smith began having nightmares about it. One day, they decided they had had enough. They packed up the doll and threw it in the trash outside. But the next morning, the doll was back in Lily's room, sitting on her bed. They tried to throw it away again, but it kept coming back. Finally, one night, the family woke up to find the doll missing. They searched the entire house, but it was nowhere to be found. As they were about to give up, they heard a soft whispering coming from the attic. They went up to investigate and found the doll sitting in a corner, just as they had found it when they first moved in. But something was different about the doll now. Its eyes seemed to follow them wherever they went, and they could hear it whispering to them. The family knew they had to get out of the house, so they packed up and left. As they were driving away, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching them from the shadows of the attic. As the Smith family drove away from their old house, they thought they were leaving the strange occurrences behind. But the feeling of unease stayed with them, and they couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was still watching them from afar. Days turned into weeks, and the family started to feel like they were finally safe. However, strange things began happening again. Lily would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced she could hear the doll's whispers in her ear. Mrs. Smith started having nightmares about the doll again, and Mr. Smith couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. One day, Lily came home from school to find the doll sitting on her bed. She was terrified and ran out of the house, screaming for her parents. When they came to investigate, they found the doll exactly where Lily had left it, but with a piece of paper sitting next to it. The paper read, "You can't escape me. I'll always be with you." The family knew they had to do something. They decided to take the doll to a priest and have it blessed, hoping that would get rid of whatever evil was attached to it. When they arrived at the church, the priest was hesitant to take the doll. He said he could sense a powerful presence around it and warned the family that they were dealing with something dangerous. However, they insisted on having the doll blessed, and the priest reluctantly agreed. As soon as the priest began the blessing, strange things started happening. The lights flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped. Suddenly, the doll's eyes opened, and it let out a blood-curdling scream. The family watched in horror as the doll levitated off the table, surrounded by a dark aura. The priest quickly ended the blessing, and the doll fell back to the table, lifeless. The family breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they had finally banished the evil from their lives. However, as they were leaving the church, they could feel the eyes of the doll following them, and they knew that they had not seen the last of the doll's dark power.